in welcoming Secretary Hillary Rodham.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Very rowdy group. Thank you, my friends. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so very much for being here. And I love you all, too. Last night, I congratulated Donald Trump and offered to work with him on behalf of our country. I hope that he will be a successful president for all Americans. This is not the outcome we wanted or we worked so hard for, and I'm sorry that we did not win this election for the values we share and the vision we hold for our country. But I feel pride and gratitude for this wonderful campaign that we built together. This vast, diverse, creative, unruly, energized campaign. You represent the best of America, and being your candidate has been one of the greatest honors of my life.
Too bad it wasn't enough.
I know how disappointed you feel because I feel it too.
I bet you do.
And so do tens of millions of Americans who invested their hopes and dreams in this effort. This is painful.
Yes.
And it will be
brutal.
a long time.
Yes.
But I want you to remember this.
Yes.
Our campaign was never about one person or even one election.
But that's the rub, ain't it? It was about one person. I mean, after all, she ran a campaign to slogan, I'm with her. I'm with her, a singular being. I am with her. This has nothing to do with the world or the country. It has to do with her. That is another 12 minutes of fluff. But ultimately, what you're watching is the brutal breakdown, the embarrassment of an individual in and of a camp and losing a race to a person who, on the day that he was elected, Donald Trump, was considered to be, by the majority of the country, completely unqualified for the job. And despite being considered unqualified for the job, it ended up with a map looking like this. That's brutal. That's fundamentally brutal. He beat the stuffing out of her. She can claim that she won more votes. That's true, the popular vote, but the popular vote is not what we use to choose elections. If the Democratic Party wanted to change that, then the Democratic Party should have went about going to change that. They didn't change that. So we don't use the popular vote to make the determination. And ultimately, the extra votes that she got was the 3 million votes from California. She got slaughtered through the rest of the country. This, what you're watching, was the concession speech of Hillary Clinton. I'm showing you this for a reason. When Hillary Clinton lost that race, and if I'm being honest, I've been broken, and there are indelible scars that are somewhat hidden from me, or hidden from the public, that creates a certain degree of aberrant behavior. So if I'm being honest, yes, I do get a certain degree of pleasure out of this, because these are the same people that cheated Sanders, that sneered at us when we pointed out to the fact that they cheated Sanders, that ran that race as if it was owed to them, not that they had to go out and get those votes, that it was owed to them. When she chose Tim Kaine, when she decided that get behind me and her followers, essentially towed the line with her of getting behind me, and how dare you back Sanders, or how dare you complain that I am not, let's say, the person that you want me to be in this particular race. It was all everybody else's fault. At the end of that concession speech, after this degree of failure, in the campaign headquarters, I'm going to read the book Shattered, because I want to make a point. In fact, let's look at the Hillary supporters while I read Shattered. Because this wasn't a person who was contrite in her loss and walked away. This is a person who didn't want to own that loss. In the same way that when Al Gore lost, instead of taking the loss himself, instead of explaining and trying to have some soul searching as to why they lost, why the public would choose such an incompetent person like George Bush over Al Gore, they blame Nader and use the blaming of Nader as a reason to keep on ticking along in the way that they were ticking along. Status quo, business as usual. Hillary Clinton's loss wasn't that different. This is Shattered. People kept calling Hillary Clinton, and she had to, as you can imagine, talk to one person after the next, and then talking to one person after the next, explain over and over and over again, probably saying some of the same things about why she lost the reality show host. I'm sorry I lost the reality show host. I can't believe that you lost the reality show host. How in the world did you lose the reality show host? On a phone call with a longtime friend a couple of days after the election, Hillary was much less accepting of her defeat. She put a fine point on the factors she believed cost her the presidency. FBI, meaning Comey, the KGB, meaning Russia, the KKK, meaning the white nationalists. Now, this is utter nonsense. Racists have always voted for the Republican Party, so that's not anything different. It wasn't that Trump brought this upswell of racists that just running to the polls in order to put Trump in office. And as for Comey, come on. I'm angry, Hillary told her friends, and exhausted. After two brutal campaigns against Sanders and Trump, Hillary now had to explain the failure to her friends in a seemingly endless round of phone calls. That was a toll on her already weary and grief-stricken soul. But mostly, she was mad that she'd lost and that the country would have to endure a Trump presidency. Let's be honest, she was mad that she lost, not that the country would have to endure a Trump presidency. In other words, with the advisors, the political surrogates in the days after the election, Hillary declined to take responsibility for her own loss. She's not being particularly self-reflective, said one longtime ally, who was on calls with her shortly after the election. Instead, Hillary kept pointing fingers at Comey and Russia. She wants to make sure that all of these narratives get spun the right way, the person said. The strategy had been set within 24 hours of her concession speech. Mook and Podesta assembled her communications team at the Brooklyn headquarters to engineer the case that the election wasn't entirely on the up and up. For a couple of hours, with Shake Shack containers littering the room, they went over the script they would pitch to the press and to the public. Already, Russia hacking was the centerpiece. Off to the races. The media hates Donald Trump, picks it up and runs with it. And for the last 2.5 years, we have endured the specter of Russia hacking, Russia and Trump. And none of it has been demonstrated. They've had this sad, pathetic case of charging people who were not in the country itself, who would never come to fruition, and ultimately on putting out Facebook and Twitter ads. The world that we live in now is a result of the behavior of Hillary Clinton. Politico has run a story that needs to be seen. The Mueller report public service announcement. Prepare for disappointment. All you Russiagaters, all of conspiracy theorists, the people who want to blame Russia for their failings, the people who want to say it was Russia, Russia has something to do with it, Vladimir Putin riding across the Atlantic Ocean with his pecs showing. All of these people have looked for some excuse as to why that woman lost the race, with the exception of that woman just losing the race, including Hillary Clinton herself. And the world that we inhabit today is a world that's been created by Hillary Clinton. Yes, I take a certain, a certain glee at watching these people weep. Because ultimately the person who they were pushing for was the person that has pivoted us into this dangerous situation with a nuclear-powered nation. And not just pivoted us in a dangerous situation with a nuclear-powered nation, but also is giving the Democratic Party a certain amount of leeway that they should not get. At a time where they should be doing soul searching, at a time where they need to figure out what the fuck is wrong with that particular party and fix that particular party, they are still hanging on to this idea of Russia meddling. Russia has something to do with it, as opposed to her just losing the race. Even in those show trials that these guys are putting out, they weren't trying to get Trump elected. Even if you want to go by what they're putting out, and I don't even take that to be true, they weren't trying to get Trump elected. And yet this is the world that we inhabit today. This woman didn't want to own her failings, and so she leaves with this Hail Mary. Mind you, the attacks on social media to some degree, meaning alternative media, the demonetizations of the channels, the censorship that we're incurring, is in many respects from what she started in this particular pursuit of not owning her failure and her loss. Prepare for disappointment. Indeed. Politico is trying to essentially tamp down on what people are their expectations, let's say it that way, from what Mueller may come out with in this report. And let's just read part of it. The word Politico got from defense lawyers working on the Russia probe and more than 15 government officials with investigation experience spanning Watergate to the 2016 election case. The public, they say, shouldn't expect a comprehensive and presidency-wrecking account of the Kremlin meddling and alleged obstruction of justice by Trump. Not to mention an explanation of the myriad subplots that have bedeviled lawmakers and journalists and amateur Mueller sleuths. Perhaps most unsatisfyingly, Mueller's findings may never see the light of day. That's just the way it works, said John Q. Bartlett, a former associate attorney who worked under independent counsel Lawrence Walsh's during the Reagan-era investigation into secret U.S. arms sales to Iran. Mueller is a criminal investigator. He's got government oversight, and he's a historian. He's not a historian. All this may sound like a buzzkill after 2 years of intense news coverage depicting the potential conspiracy between the Kremlin and Trump campaign, plus the scores of tweets from White House condemning Mueller probe as a witch hunt. I told you. We told you. This was a political motivated attack on Donald Trump. I don't even like Donald Trump. But this political motivated attack on Donald Trump has consequences, those consequences that you've been seeing with, like I said, demonetization, censorship, this idea that Hillary Clinton was supposed to win. And because Hillary Clinton didn't win, all of these other things have taken place and transpired. But all of it started with her not wanting to accept her loss and her getting her spin doctors to get out there and weave this tale and give it. And the media, just like weapons of mass destruction, took it and ran. It's not that it's impossible that Russia may have something to do with trying to meddle in an election per se. All governments try to interact in some way. But to say that Facebook and Twitter ads, like $50,000 or whatever, half of which took place after the election, was the thing that stopped the election is nonsense. I can point to several other things that might have had impact. One being this interstate cross check and the number of people who were shoved off the roads in the various states. Hillary Clinton not going to Wisconsin, I would say that might have had some particular effect. Hillary Clinton working with NAFTA, that might have had some level of effect. Hillary Clinton and those speeches, that might have had some level of effect. There's all sorts of things that had effect. Her being under criminal investigation for the email server, that might have had some effect. Her being the most hated candidate in the history of candidates with the exception of Donald Trump, all of those things were negative effects. The feeling that she was being selected as opposed to chosen. The cheating of Sanders, the choosing of Tim Kaine. Many things could be attributed that caused that loss. Russia, if it's on the list at all, is way down on that list. It's way down on that list. I'm going to leave it here because I don't want this one to go too long. But prepare to be disappointed. Prepare to be disappointed. And look, part of this has to do with Mueller's mandate. Mueller's mandate is not necessarily this kind of big splashy thing. Mueller's mandate is more of a yes or no on whether or not they should do charges and so forth. But I love the fact that Politico is making this thing of public service announcement. Prepare to be disappointed. Government investigators, experts are waving a giant yellow caution flag now to warn that Mueller's no comment mantra is unlikely to give way to tell-all report and accompanying blitz of media interviews and public testimony on Capitol Hill. He won't be a good witness, Paul Rosenwig, a former senior counsel to independent counsel Kenneth Starr, now working as a senior fellow for the nonprofit R Street Institute. He will be yes or no or maybe. Now, when Bill Clinton was being deposed, he was under a different rule set, meaning any information that they received had to go to Congress, especially if it was an impeachable offense. That's not necessarily true here. Mueller is working under a different mandate. Also, it would be for the Department of Justice to make a determination on what to do with the information that comes into Mueller's report, meaning you're not going to get this cathartic, yes, we got him, in the way that the rabid Hillary supporters that failed or who watched their candidate fail on this night once. I told you. I told you for a year. This was a political motivated witch hunt in order to tarnish the presidency of the United States and to undermine his win. That's all it was. The media picked it up and ran with it and looked through the world through the lens of that context. But this was pushed on the media in this kind of, what's pushed to the public. And the public, don't get me wrong, accepted this. I mean, after all, they were told, these people, these shattered human beings, were told that 98% or so chance, or Hillary Clinton had a 90-something% chance of winning that race. And they had no paradigm of the world to understand how she could lose to reality shows. How a map can end up looking like this. They didn't understand. And so they fell into conspiracy theories. Russia attacked democracy. Vladimir Putin touched Lady Liberty. Vladimir Putin is working with Donald Trump. Oh, it had to be something else. The president is illegitimate. The president is illegitimate. You can make an argument he's illegitimate for other reasons, but not for the Russian nonsense. I'll leave it at this. Prepare to be disappointed. Prepare to be disappointed. All right. I'm going to leave this here. I'm going to leave this here because this one has gone far longer than I've wanted to go. Yes, I wish I was a better person than getting a little bit of pleasure from playing these old clips of Hillary Clinton giving a concession speech and seeing Hillary supporters completely wrecked at the end of that. But my ilk and I, the group of misfit toys that cobbled ourselves together, that supported Sanders, was treated pretty miserably by the Democratic Party. And so, yeah, I'm exhibiting a bit of aberrant behavior. Is what it is. Wish I was a better person. I'm not. I'll leave it here. Prepare to be wrong. Politico is giving you a heads up. Prepare to be disappointed. Russiagaters. Thanks all.